Welcome to the Coburg Public Library's virtual author visit today. I am super excited to have two authors joining me in this virtual author presentation today. And I want to welcome Jan Fluke and I want to welcome Deborah Kekewich. Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for joining the Coburg Public Library and bringing your stories to our families. We are so excited to have you with us today. So I met Jan. I was super excited when I had a telephone conversation with her. I've met her in the library, and we also have been exchanging emails. So it's a crazy time in the world. It's hard to really get warm and fuzzy with people, but I'm so glad that at least there have been opportunities to discuss Jan and Deborah's wonderful works, even in the time of COVID, and how wonderful it is to actually have heartwarming, lovely, wonderful children's books being made available during such a difficult time. And that's the wonderful thing about literacy, books and reading. There's so much time to do that right now, and people are taking advantage of that. And I don't want to ramble anymore, because if I know our community, they want to hear you guys. They don't want to hear me. So I'm going to let Deborah and Jan take over, and welcome, ladies.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, we're happy to be here too.
Real.
And Jan's going to tell you a little bit about herself.
Okay then. So just in a nutshell, I live in Grafton, lifelong library addict, and books are like just an addiction for me. Maybe that's not the right word, but anyway, I grew up in Toronto and gradually moved east. Went back to school in my 40s to become a teacher, which is what I had always wanted to do, and was fortunate to be able to teach in the area, Grafton, Castleton, Bowmanville. And although I thought I would teach high school, I ended up teaching primary, which I absolutely loved. And I think that's sort of what contributed to Deb and I, at least from my end, writing books for young children, because we just love the way children react to us reading to them. And that's kind of where we started, was just seeing the importance of read aloud books, setting up the ear for reading. And now Deb can tell you about her story.
Well, my story is I've been a teacher for 35 years, now retired, and did a lot of my work in Toronto. And again, like Jan, you know, a lifelong reader, started when I was a baby and carried on. Taught all the grades from 1 to 8. And Jan and I have had many conversations about how the kids in grade 7 and 8 still love to be read to. Everybody loves to be read to. My husband loves to be read to. Everybody does. So that's how we got onto this. As part of my career too, I also worked for Pearson and Nelson publishing houses and did a lot of educational writing. So I wrote a few books there, and I did a lot of teachers' manuals and a lot of contributing to all kinds of literacy programs in different ways. And I just always loved that. As much as I loved teaching, I just loved those times when I could be doing any kind of writing as well. So for me, I guess that's my entry into our twosome.
Okay.
And
we've known each other for a very long time.
40 years, I think.
Yes. And really the first book, Maisies Pet Quest, started about
10 years ago.
10 years ago. But we just didn't know how to go about getting it published or having it illustrated.
We didn't know anything.
We didn't know anything. And so COVID really gave us perhaps the time and the motivation to pull it all together. And that's basically what we did. We really valued having a local initiative, so locally printed, local illustrators, and that's been our focus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you want to read a little bit of one of your books, whichever one you choose, all or part? I know those families out there would love to have a taste of what you have put together.
Well, this is the first one that we started 10 years ago, Maisies Pet Quest. And we did start writing this. I'll tell you just a bit about it. We started writing it in Florida. We were having a little winter break, and we were sitting around the kitchen table, and we had been talking to friends about, you know, our experiences teaching, and then they left, and then Jan and I sort of carried on and did more talking about how, you know, read aloud books were so important. And then we thought, hey, maybe we should try to write one. And so very quickly we got some ideas down, and we had a really fun time doing it. And then, yeah, it sat on the shelf for like 10 years because we just didn't know what to do next.
Wow.
We sent it to publishers, but didn't get any responses. And I don't think it's because it's not a good book. It's just because that's the way it happens.
Right.
So anyway, so this is the first one. And this book is the first of a 4-book series. So it's, or maybe 5, who knows? But right now it's 4. And it is, all 4 books are Maisie's ongoing quest for a pet. Because of course, not all of her ideas work out the first time. So that's a little introduction into it. And this book is a conversation really between Maisie and her mom. And we can read just a bit of it to let you know how it starts.
So shall I?
Yes, Jan will read Mom's part and I will be Maisie. No, reverse.
Yes, yes.
Jan, you be Maisie.
Okay. All right, I want to be me.
All right.
Okay.
I'll
Be Mom.
be Mom.
See if you notice anything in the illustrations, because there's definitely something different, as a little fellow pointed out to us. A pony, Maisie said one day, would be a pet that I could ride. A dog is good, a cat is fine. Sneaks outside.
If a pony is your heart's desire, there's a lot to think about. Caring for a pony's tough, of that there is no doubt.
You.
Like when your pony's sleepy, where would he rest his head?
That's no problem, Mummy. He will share my comfy bed.
And when that pony's thirsty, how would he get a drink?
Well, he'll trot into the kitchen and sip right from the sink.
So, when your pony's hungry, Maisie, where would you have him eat?
Well, he can sit right at the table. There's room for his 4 feet.
And when your pony needs to run, as all young ponies do?
Well, I'll just put him on the treadmill and he can gallop for an hour or 2.
Okay, when your pony's sweaty, how would you get him clean?
I'll put him in the bathtub and scrub him till he gleams.
But when his mane gets tangled and there are knots all through his hair?
I'll comb them out and buy barrettes to show him that I care.
All right. What about those chompers? They'll get dirty, oh my gosh.
I can brush them with some toothpaste and finish off with floss.
And what about those big old hooves? How will you keep them clipped?
I'll soak them first, file them down, and paint them with paint tips.
Oh, we maybe, I don't know. Should we just read this
Just
next
this
one?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
And however will you handle it when that pony needs to poo?
Diapers come in extra large, so baby wipes should too.
And I think we'll stop it there. So you can see that Mom has got legitimate concerns about how you keep a pony in an apartment. And Maisie,
No problem. Maisie thinks outside the box. She's always got a solution.
So that's the beginning of the Maisie book, and I'm sure you'd like to read more.
And the second book in the Maisies series, which just actually came out last week, is Maisies Pet Quest, A Prickly Proposition. So I'm sure there's a bit of a clue there as to where that book is going. And the third book, after this one is finished, is actually being illustrated as we speak.
Yeah, right.
So
now.
they're all written. They're just in the process of being illustrated.
Yeah.
So that's that book. A book that we wrote in the meantime, we've actually written about 7 when we add them up.
Yeah.
They're just not all in various stages of completion. But we decided to do a book about, it was actually my dog and Deb's dog, as a standalone book. And you'll notice that the illustrations in Foster the Dog are very different from the Maisie series. This Maisie's illustrator is a teacher in Grafton, a friend of mine, and she
And mine.
and Debbie's, yeah, sorry,
Now.
and very different style. And whereas Foster is illustrated by
Barbara Bickle.
Barbara Bickle, who is an artist of renown in Port Hope. And it was just a coincidence that we were able to get together with Barbara when we were sort of thinking, what should we do with this Foster book? And if you see, the illustrations are very vivid. They're acrylic, where the other
Actual
book,
paintings, and then they were formatted.
mm-hmm. So,
And this book is as Jan said, totally different. This is for even younger readers, but it can be enjoyed by many ages. It's a predictable pattern book on one side, and funny verse on the other side. So, and it's a story about Foster, the dog, who is stuck inside and he can't play with his friends. So his friends are out doing wonderful things over here, while that dog from over yonder likes to amble and wander. Foster's happy to sit with his stuffy. While that dog down the lane likes to cavort with a cane, Foster's happy to sit with his stuffies. So we like this book a lot because there's great vocabulary on this side and rhymes, and on this side a nice predictable pattern, so that by the time a 2-year-old has read it twice, mm-hmm. he can chime in or she can chime in on this side, and so presto, they're reading. And so this is a very different book, and we love it a lot. And so do people who have read it too. Mm-hmm. It's a favorite. It's, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
yeah.
One of the things that we found quite fascinating, we wrote it, but we didn't really have a vision of how it was going to look, or it certainly was not the way it turned out. Where Barbara, who had never illustrated a children's book, but was just absolutely enchanted with the story, she did something we didn't notice at first, which is in her illustrations, her color palette goes across both pages, even though one is an indoor setting and one is an outdoor setting.
Very clever, very beautiful.
It is, yes, absolutely.
And so we were very happy about that. You can see that. And
yeah, the other thing we did mm-hmm. was this sort of came because of COVID, because we were indoors doing this, and people were it was during lockdown, people were trying to homeschool. And so we decided, and also just because we're teachers and we couldn't help ourselves, we put on the back of each book, the Maisies as well, a talk and try page. And it's a page of discussion points and activities that parents and their children can do together.
Great idea.
And the activities range from very simple to actually, good for 10-year-olds.
Yeah, 8, 9, 10.
The activities, because we thought, if a sibling was at home as well, who was older, And, you know, anybody can enjoy the story. And then there were a few activities for older children as well, so that they could participate at the same time. And
Great idea.
And the other piece that ended up happening because of COVID was, again, how are we going to market, et cetera. But also we realized that parents were going to be working with their children, as Debbie said, at home. So we thought, okay, let's make a website. We had no idea what we were doing, but let's do it. And on the website, we put further activities, extended the activities, and did them with curriculum connections so that parents, teachers could work with students.
And printable,
downloadable charts and graphs.
graphs.
Just as if we were teaching in the classroom, as every teacher does, takes a book and extends it. You can extend it as little or as much as you want. And so that was our next learning curve, which just seems to go on ad infinitum.
Yeah.
So that's
great that you have that interaction at the back, that families can have discussions. I love that part about it. And I'm really glad, Jan, that you talked about the different illustrators and the different styles of illustrations between one book series and another book. I think that's wonderful. You also segued into a question I was going to ask about publishing and marketing during a time of COVID. So I thank you for mentioning that about, you had the time and, you created a website and you've reached out to the library. And so because of the library, we're able to help you, and we can share it with the community because we believe in your printed work and the value that it could add to children and families to help create a love of reading. But we've also had a conversation, Jan, about social media and how you might do something yourself. And so it's people in the community helping other people in the community, right? That's what COVID has done, is just make us connect a little bit more and be kinder, I think, and more helpful. And so these are some great things to come out of a very tough time. Are you okay if I ask you ladies some questions?
Yes.
All right.
Answers, but give it a go.
So I was just kind of wondering, there's a lot of localness, again, community, a lot of localness to your stories. And I just wondered if there was any resemblance in your books to, I know you mentioned the dog was, obviously had a personal connection for you, but any resemblance to Northumberland County in your stories?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
That's okay. That's okay. There's no right or wrong answer. It was just truthfully a question. I wondered, if Barbara or, if somebody had mentioned that, there was this tree in my backyard, and so nobody else would know this, and, but I painted the tree here, or, this one part about, the flossing the horse's teeth came about because, maybe somebody, had mentioned, how does a horse floss? Anyway, I always like to ask if there are connections to our community, and sometimes there are, and sometimes they're not, and that's okay.
I don't think we had that intention.
It was more that our kid, both of our daughters were into horses.
When they
there you go.
We were trying to think, what would we write about? We want to write, what would we write about? And so that's how the horse idea.
Well, that's perfect. If you didn't choose, well, how about we go to the one that is the standalone, Foster the Dog. Right. If you had to give this book a different title, what would it be? Have you thought about that?
Go ahead.
I had one day. We're just being silly, and
as we often are.
Yeah, Canine Conundrum.
Very good.
Friends was pretty tame.
Yeah.
Couch Dilemma.
Yeah.
It went on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
We sort of is it riff? Is that
Yeah.
the word? We sort of riff on all the time about and brainstorm back and forth about different things.
I'm sure it takes a lot of thought to try to come up with a title, and I was just wondering. Now, in your stories, and they can be animals or people, are there any characters that you would like to meet in real life?
Well, we did meet Foster
Yes.
in real life,
And Winston.
and their love of stuffies. That's an absolutely truly true thing. And Foster, Winston has 6 or 8 stuffies in his mouth at once. And Foster, who has passed, also loves stuffies. And one thing we really loved about this dog was that if one of us in our family, our daughter, my husband, myself, our son, anybody was feeling sad or sick, Foster would bring his very special stuffy and give it to us. And actually, we still have that stuffy, but we can't let it go.
Right.
No. Oh, that's wonderful. Now, looking at your publications, if you were to choose, do you think any of them would make a cool movie, a video game, a TV show, like a story about? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think the Maisie series would make an absolutely amazing cartoon
No
show.
pun intended.
Yeah.
I do.
Awesome.
Because she and these 4 books are simply about her quest for a pet.
Yeah.
But we have 1,000 more ideas in our head of things that they can be getting into.
That's wonderful.
We love our character Maisie because she's a very strong little girl. She has her own opinions. She thinks outside the box. Yeah. She's always up for an adventure, and she doesn't back down from anything. And she's got a lot of really good traits.
That's a great message to share, both for boys and girls and everyone, right? Like, that's just awesome. What would you, Jan, I'll start with you. I'll ask this question to you. What would you like parents or children to take away from your stories?
Just a fun and I think that they're entertaining. Our theme tends to be about friendship, and that friendships can look many different ways. They're not always the same. I mean, our animals are important to us. Our love of the environment, which comes out more in the second book, in the Prickly Porcupine. I think we try to go lightly on things, but there is a deeper message if you look for it. It's like everything.
Yes.
It's sort of how you interact with the book. I think our biggest challenge, we were talking about that, is trying to take a big idea and encapsulate it in simple rhyming verse, but not make it so simple, but just I don't know, Deb, carry on from there.
No, like big ideas into verse, without the verse being
simplistic.
Yeah, simplistic or forced or whatever.
Good. So, Deborah, there are 4 books in the Maisies series, and then you have your standalone book. You talked about big ideas. So my question is, I love to read the printed word. I mean, that's just what I like. But do I like to write it? Absolutely not. So Deborah, my question for you is, those big ideas, do you, in your process of writing these publications, these books, have you had a time where the ideas just wouldn't come? Did you have that writer's block that we hear about? Did that happen for you at any point?
Not for this. Not
about your novel.
Not for these books. 15 years ago, on the heels of the Harry Potter series, which I loved, I started to write a book for 8-10-year-olds. And I got it completed, and I was really good with the plot, but I didn't like the sequencing so much of how the story went, because Jan helped me. She read it and she says, well, these kids don't get into a scary situation until page 23. And so I thought, yeah, that's right. Okay, because I was writing sequentially as it was coming out of my mind. So for 15 years, I've had writer's block with this book about the plot and how to put the pieces together in a different way. So that's sort of always going on in my head. So I have had experience with that.
Yeah.
But for these books, no,
We just have fun.
we just have fun.
And there's probably so much passion, right? That is like, oh, what are they going to do next? And yeah, I can see that from the two of you. Yeah.
We wrote these in fun, and we wrote them for fun.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Everybody have a smile and a giggle, you know.
That's what it's all about. So I'm going to ask the same question for both of you, so you can decide who goes first. What was your favorite childhood book?
You remember.
Well,
yours.
I don't know, but I can tell you what I do remember from my childhood. It was so long ago. I do remember the Beatrix Potter books, and my mom had all the cutlery and everything, and the plates and the cups, everything. And I have this glimmer of a memory of reading the story and then finding the characters on the dishes.
Oh,
That connection. She did
that's
that.
really cool.
So I do remember that. And then then it seems to be a slide in time. And I remember when I was about 8 years old, loving the Enid Blyton books. Mystery of Mountain of Adventure and Castle of Adventure and all of those. And then that slid me into the Nancy Drew Hardy Boys, which I loved. I can remember I used a volunteer job at the local library so that I could shelve the books and be the first one to get them.
Great.
Anyway, and I did love those. And I was recounting to Jan that it was interesting when I first started teaching, and it was in the junior grade classroom, my very first one. The consultant came in and saw some Hardy Boy and Nancy Drew books in the class library and said, oh, you need to get rid of those. You can't have those books. They're not, good enough for the kids to be reading. So I said, okay, and away they went. And now it's funny because I think I still have them, of course. I pulled some out, a few years ago and started just rereading. And the vocabulary in those books was phenomenal compared to many, many, many books for readers of that age that are published today. So I find that just an interesting segue.
We have a common theme here, Deborah. I am a Nancy Drew collector.
I know.
In my home, I have a very old bookcase which has anything you can think of that was produced with a Nancy Drew theme. So a lot of the books I have dust jacket covers on them. They're so old. I have a calendar, I have cookbooks, I have address books, I have a watch, I have a Christmas ornament, I have a puzzle. I am a huge Nancy Drew fan, just like you. So that's cool. That's really cool. Jan, your favorite childhood books?
So it's interesting because I'm a lifelong reader, and as our children, which I guess that's where we're going with this, is that if children are read to, or they at least have books around them, they will be readers. I can only say my first memory is my coming to Toronto and my dad taking me to the local library at Ashdale in Toronto, in East Toronto. and saying to me, having come from rural New Brunswick and not ever having been to a library,
Mhm.
he said, you can have any book you want from here. I was like a kid in a candy shop. Really?
Mhm.
And he gave, we got my library card, and I still remember the librarian. She was tall, gray-haired, had a bun, and I wanted to be a librarian. And she took me to the children's section, and I devoured every single fairy tale book
Oh,
at those shelves. That's where I started. So my
oh,
first,
what a great story. I loved hearing that. And what a great librarian who did a top-notch job to make a reader out of you. That's, oh, I get goosebumps thinking about that. That's just awesome. I do have another question. It's a little bit personal, and you don't have to answer it. Maybe you haven't experienced it yet, but I always think that books have the power to create many emotions. So a book can make you laugh out loud, but it also has the power to bring you to tears. And I've both laughed out loud, and I have shed a few tears over many books. Are there specific books that either of you can think of that have moved you greatly with your emotions?
Well, it's hard.
I can
Yeah,
about my
Jan.
stuff, but
Yeah, yeah, oh no, many books. The ones that I find myself very moved by are books about the Holocaust and books about the war, and books with strong female characters in them, like the Nightingale and the Alice Network. Those books really send me somewhere else. But yeah, no, there's so many, and unfortunately, I don't keep a record of what I read like my partner does. So I read them and love them and move on. But generally speaking, that's the genre for me that brings out many emotions in me. And I don't know if it's because my dad was in the war, and I have personal connections with all of that, or if they're just well-written books.
I think you and I are kind of, I'm picking up a lot of similar vibe. I had the opportunity to visit Auschwitz and Birkenau this last Christmas. An experience that I think everybody should have the opportunity to experience. When it was a tour, and when we got back on our bus, it was very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was doing an awful lot of thinking. And there is a children's book, thinking about kids' books, but there is a book that moved me as well, related to the war, called The Tunnel King. And it was the story of Wally Floody, who is Canadian, and in the Second World War was part of the efforts to dig tunnels in the concentration camps. And so one of the things that I didn't realize was that they had several tunnels going at the same time, because if the Germans discovered one, then they weren't at a complete loss. But it was a story of the Great Escape. And sadly, I mean, Wally survived the concentration camp, and but sadly developed emphysema from digging underground for all that time. But it's just like the Tunnel King. There are stories to be shared to sort of remind us where we've been and where we don't want to go. And I really like the power that books can have, and they certainly can move you to tears. But stories like yours, Maisie, is going to make us laugh out loud and feel real good, and that's a wonderful thing. Last question for you both, and probably something that you really want to promote is we are gearing up for the holiday season. Some people are in it already. Where can these families, these parents, the kids, if the kids want to ask for Santa to bring them a book, or if the parents want to maybe buy books for kids, where can they get a copy of any of your wonderful books?
Jennifer at Let's Talk Books has been an amazing supporter and really advisor in helping us get from to print. So she has them. Furby House has them. We've been selling them at markets, and that's been great because then we can talk about the story.
Glovers
In Warkworth, and
on
Spark Toys.
Spark Toys.
Oh, great.
So they're all local places, but also on our website,
Okay.
which is at the bottom of that poster.
Okay.
Forty Snuggery. We've got it all set up so you can just shop online, and if you live locally, we'll deliver the books free of charge. And
Awesome.
if you live in BC, then I'm sorry, there's a little shipping charge, but yeah.
We will make sure to include your website in the postings so that families can visit your website. But just to remind our viewers that Let's Talk Books is in Cobourg, Furby House is in Port Hope, of course. And just a big shout out for Cobourg Public Library. We will also be having your books available here at the Cobourg Public Library for those families who sometimes people like to check out a book before they actually make the decision to purchase. And sometimes, you know, especially with COVID, things can be a struggle, and we are your Cobourg Public Library, and we will bring Jan and Deborah's books to you in whatever way we can, and if it means borrowing them from us, then so be it. We are here. I'd like to thank the two of you for spending time with me today, sharing your love of reading, sharing your love of writing and storytelling. We all need this right now, and we're in the Christmas season. I can't think of a better time to promote what you have put together. And as the youth specialist for the Cobourg Public Library, I've had the wonderful pleasure of meeting a lot of authors over 35 years, and seeing a lot of books come in and out of the library, and your books are very endearing, and it's been an absolute pleasure to help you promote them and share the story of Maisie, and looking forward to the fourth book. And I want to wish you, if it isn't too early, and if it is hopefully not offensive to you, I'd like to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday. And let's hope COVID is gone in 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.